Slavery is back.
Welcome to a place where private business profit from a captive labour force, yet pennies are spent on medical services to a population in which the Indigenous, the poor and the mentally ill are overrepresented. Where isolation, humiliation and degradation are facts of life. Welcome to prison.
It depends who's telling the story, I suppose. The prisoners would have one view, the people who work in the prison system would have another, and I think it's up to people to decide where the truth is.
Give government propaganda and the media spin doctors the flick. And check out Doin Time for news, views and tunes on prison issues from Guantanamo Bay to Christmas Island to prisons and detention centres everywhere. Every Monday at 4 p.m. on your community radio 3CR.
We are still fired up and we're still talking about revolution.
Hello and welcome to the Doin Time show. This is 3CR Community Radio, 855 AM on the dial, streaming live on www.3cr.org.au. And a warning that this episode of Doin Time contains audio descriptions of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who have died and graphic discussion of deaths in custody. I'm Marissa and I'll be taking you through for the next hour. This special Doin Time program is a dedication and tribute to the much-loved and honourable Uncle Ray Jackson, born the 27th of March 1951 and who died on April the 23rd, 2015. He was a Wiradjuri warrior who dedicated his life to fighting for justice and human rights for Aboriginal people and much more. Our first tribute to Ray is Joseph Pugliese, long-time activist and much-loved guest on Doin Time and close friend of Ray Jackson. We will hear from his loved ones throughout the show. We will also interview Carolyn Jackson, daughter of Uncle Ray. She has been a much-loved part of the show too, since 2015 when her father passed away. Ray is missed by Caroline and her beautiful family. Lastly, we will bring you an interview with Rob from Monday Breakfast. And I've invited Rob onto the show because Ray was always instrumental in fighting police brutality. And I'm going to be interviewing Rob about a Saturday rally, the 26th of April, where around 450 activists attended a counter-protest in the name of trans liberation. And there were many people that were harassed by police as a result of draconian police powers. But shortly, we will speak to Joseph, who will give a comprehensive introduction and historical context to Ray's life and work, beginning with his trauma as a child of the stolen generations, driving his burning desire to achieve social justice. Hello, Joseph. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Marissa. How are you? Lovely to be with you.
You too, Joseph. It's thank you so much for coming on at such short notice.
You're welcome.
Now, Joseph, I'm going to hand it over to you. Can you tell us, it's that time again, isn't it? I mean, it's not exactly on the anniversary, but I've tried to do it as close as possible. And it's that time again, isn't it?
Yes, to think of the late, great Uncle Ray and the extraordinary works that he achieved and the ongoing legacy in the way in which he continues to inspire social justice activists in this world. So I'm always honoured to talk about Uncle Ray because I look to him as an inspiration.
Tell me more. Tell me about Ray.
Well, look, he's an extraordinary figure. In one sense, he was a revolutionary figure that came out of that period in the 70s and 80s that saw Indigenous activism, specifically Aboriginal activism, across so many fronts, contesting the prison industrial complex, contesting the lack of access to education, contesting the lack of access to jobs, equal opportunities, etc. But Uncle Ray's focus sort of encompassed all of those because he was a very holistic figure. And from the start, precisely because he came through the union movement, so he was really literate in the sorts of social justice activism that was trying to achieve things like equal pay, equal access to opportunities, etc. They really formed part of his roots, but, you know, we can say that his profound roots in terms of personal experience of the enormity of injustice that Indigenous people experienced in this country was that he was a member of the stolen generation. And I know Carolyn, his daughter, who you'll interview later, will probably speak to this in much more detail, but it left an indelible mark, needless to say, that he was a child of the stolen generation, that he was taken away from his mother and never reconnected again. And speaking to some of the family members, they said that the only time they ever saw Uncle Ray visibly reduced to tears is when he would speak of that past. So in a sense, we mark that past because Uncle Ray's sense of injustice and the need to have reparations for those injustices and to restructure the structures that produce those structural injustices came out of a very personal trauma which haunted his entire life, but in an amazing way, which he managed to transcend and to transform into productive social justice interventions. And probably his most important were in the field of Indigenous deaths in custody, in the field of being one of the key proponents for the recommendations for the Royal Commission into Aboriginal deaths in custody in the 80s, where basically he and other members of the Aboriginal community called for a Royal Commission to investigate the accelerating rates of Indigenous deaths in custody in our prisons. And, of course, when the recommendations came out, 339 of them, they were all supposed to be implemented, but as we know, barely any of those implementations have been actually implemented in our prison system. And what Uncle Ray did was to set up, once he saw the failure of government to actually implement those key recommendations, which would save lives, was to really establish an independent body, the Indigenous Social Justice Association, of which he was president for decades, effectively. And that became really the site from which he began to make interventions to help the families, the survivors who had lost members in the prison system due to police and prison guard brutality and violence.
Absolutely, and he was also a long-time president, wasn't he, of the ISJA, Indigenous Social Justice Association?
That's right. He was the founding member of ISJA, and basically he founded it, when I had conversations with him, because he was quite disgusted at the failure of the state, unsurprisingly, to do something so minimal as implement its own recommendations. And he could see the way in which Indigenous deaths in custody continue to expand exponentially, as they do now, as we have seen now. I mean, at the recent coronial inquest of the young Dunghutti warrior, David Dungay, which I attended a few years ago, it was clear that one of the key recommendations that had been made was that there'd be a liaison officer present when there was an issue or a problem between prison guards and an Aboriginal inmate. And there was an altercation with David and the prison guards, as you probably know, and your listeners probably know, over something as absurd as a packet of biscuits. The fact that he'd taken a packet of biscuits into his room seemed to have affronted the prison guard. And basically, at that point, rather than escalate it, as happened, and they dragged him out and basically killed him, a posse of prison guards killed him at Long Bay Jail, they should have had an Indigenous liaison officer come in to de-escalate. So we can see how the failure to implement those recommendations actually resulted in the death of an Indigenous inmate.
Absolutely. And that was one of many deaths in custody that Uncle Ray was involved in. He was there to build the movement to stop Aboriginal deaths in custody.
Absolutely. And look, he was so critical in so many ways in not only offering support for the families, but in enacting, believe it or not, legislative reform that worked for the families. So one of the key pieces of legislation which he actually initiated and was finally implemented was his request that an Indigenous person, specifically from the family, be present at an autopsy of the Indigenous dead, which was, and the report would go to the coroner or to the courts. And for him, because he understood that for a family it was so traumatic to have a loved one basically dissected by the state for legal purposes, he asked that an Indigenous person be present and had overview that the body was treated in a respectful way. Now, when he first proposed that, people laughed at him and said, no way that this is going to happen. But he actually fought for that, and he managed to get that implemented. And often, because the family was too upset to attend those autopsies of their loved ones, he would attend, having got their permission, of course, in lieu of them attending, and then he would report back. So he was very hands-on, and as you can imagine, that would be a really difficult and upsetting thing to witness, a forensic anatomy of your loved one. So he would stand instead of the family and then report and say, they have treated your loved one with respect. That was the sort of hands-on transformative change that Uncle Ray initiated and achieved.
Very hands-on, and actually every time the autopsy reports became, public knowledge, he would then contact me and he'd say, Marissa, I'm ready to come onto the Doin Time show. Let's talk about this in detail. So he would come onto the show and he would effectively speak about with such precision.
Absolutely. What is extraordinary about Uncle Ray was that he was so superbly literate in legalese, in the law, in legislation, but also in things like anatomy, for example. And you could see it in his writings. And on top of that, he was also an eloquent rhetorician. I mean, if you attended any of his rallies, you knew how he was capable of pitching it to a large population and speaking with such clarity, power and conviction, but also with enormous respect for the families that would come to those rallies who had lost loved ones. And for me, one of the most unforgettable moments was when I attended one of the Indigenous social justice rallies that he organised. And one of the Indigenous families had lost their loved ones in the prison system, another Indigenous death in custody. And basically the family was there, and he could see that the family was incredibly upset, as the story was being told of how their loved one had been killed in prison. And basically he stopped talking and he invited the mother and other family members to support her and gave her the mic. And basically she began to, in a sense, shout with rage. Yeah. And he said, that's fine, go ahead. You need to do this. And everyone was really reduced to tears because they could see that she needed to vent her sense of trauma and loss. On other occasions, he would actually just have silence and give the family space on the platform just to sit there in silence for everyone to sort of rally around them emotionally, but in silence. So he would use these techniques to validate the families who were standing there in their grief. So an extraordinary compassion and sensitivity to the people who are in the midst of that horror that is Indigenous deaths in custody and incarceration in this country.
And Uncle Ray received the prestigious French Human Rights Medal and the Australian state didn't even give him any award despite its long history of atrocities.
That's the scandal, Marissa. It's an absolute scandal. Now, just to contextualise that, at no point in an extraordinary career, which we could barely begin to cover in this program, where he achieved so much, and I'm just giving you a few points, was he awarded any recognition by either municipal, state or federal government bodies. No one ever gave him an award for his extraordinary social justice rights achievements. So let me tell you that I came across this French academic who had told me about the French Human Rights Medal. And as soon as she said that, I said, I'd love to nominate Uncle Ray for this. And she said, yeah, let's do it. Once I told her the extraordinary work he did, we got that in the pipeline. And before I did, of course, I contacted Uncle Ray to get his permission. And when I actually said that, and this is a token of how modest and humble he was, he actually said to me, you're joking. You're not going to do that. That's a joke, right? And I said, no, I'm absolutely serious. And look, the calibre, when it was awarded, the calibre of the man, and again, his humility, he didn't feel he was well enough to travel, so he asked one of his dear friends to do that for him. And, the friend flew over to Paris. He had a reception at the Elysee Palace in Paris, where he was awarded the medal on behalf of Uncle Ray. And when he came back, we did press releases, and only SBS covered it. No other major news organisation, including the ABC, covered this. And just to put this in context again, that medal was awarded to the likes of Nelson Mandela. So we're not talking about an insignificant award. We're talking about an internationally recognised award where such heroes as Nelson Mandela achieved recognition. Uncle Ray achieved that recognition. To the shame of this country and its media outlets, no one covered it except for SBS at the time.
It's absolutely deplorable, Joseph, and also to set the context for listeners, and I may have mentioned this, but I'll mention it again, that Ray Jackson was in Redfern, wasn't he, in New South Wales?
He was. That was his stomping ground. And just to know, too, that, even though we had this fantastic organisation called the Indigenous Social Justice Association, there was no funding to it. There was no office space to it. Basically, Uncle Ray worked from a one-bedroom flat in an apartment block, and if you went in there, you could hardly move because of all the legal files and cases that he was carrying, and he had knowledge of every single file and Indigenous death in custody in that unit. So we're talking about someone who's doing extraordinary social justice work with no government funding at all. He was doing this all off his own bat from his one-bedroom flat.
And he always used to say, sometimes he'd be asked, and I'm going to speak to Carolyn about this, but there's a quote here, sometimes my kids and grandkids ask me when am I going to give up my activism, and I always tell them when one of them is willing to take over the work.
Absolutely. And I know Karen will speak to this. He'd make witty comments like that, but he absolutely loved his kids, his grandkids, and they were there. They'd actually stay with him. They'd sleep over with him on the couch or wherever it was. Yeah. So he always had time for his family.
He really did, and so we'll be speaking to Carolyn very soon. Are there any concluding comments that you'd like to make? We could be here all night, really.
Well, look, one of the important things not to miss is the fact that Uncle Ray was absolutely committed to justice for Palestine. And we cannot omit that in the context of the ongoing genocide, where we have hundreds of Palestinians in Gaza killed every week to the gross indifference of the rest of the world and the international body. Now, I say that because one of the most famous and important quotes for me from Uncle Ray was in 2014 when the Israeli state invaded Gaza then and, did another iteration of genocidal war. And in his weekly newsletter, Uncle Ray, unforgettable words, said in 2014, we must stop this genocide. And Israel must stop this genocide now. And he began to articulate all of the violence that was unfolding in Gaza. Those words haunt me because they speak to the present. And that's the power of Uncle Ray. He was so intuitive about what needed to be named. He was so courageous in spelling truth to power, speaking truth to power. And his words continue to resonate in these really dire times.
That is a really important thing to say, really, about Palestine, because that's something that has been absolutely dreadful, the events that have unfolded. And, of course, on another note, really quickly before we finish, we can't forget TJ Hickey as well.
Absolutely, and his strong desire to get justice for Gail Hickey, TJ's mother, a young Aboriginal boy, for listeners who aren't familiar, who was basically killed by the police in a police chase. They were in a car, he was in a bike. To the horror of all of us, ongoing today, they chased him down a lane. His bike hit a curb. He went flying and was impaled in a fence and died in the most atrocious of circumstances. And still we have not had justice for the TJ Hickey family. So he was passionate about that, and he really supported Gail Hickey right to the end, and I'm sure he's there in spirit supporting her now because justice has not been achieved for the Hickey family.
Well, that's where I met Uncle Ray. I actually met him in Parramatta, when they had the trial of the persecuted Hickey family, when the police were persecuting the young people at the 21st.
Yeah, that's right. And as you know, there was that spontaneous uprising in Redfern, the so-called Redfern riots, where the youth basically rebelled, saying, "You are, to the police, you are killing us. You're killing our loved ones." And so, I mean, that was the sort of act of resistance against state violence, in this case by the police. And as you would know, Uncle Ray was absolutely fearless, but he was harassed on so many occasions by the police because of his interventionist work for social justice.
Harassed, all right, even towards the end of his life.
Absolutely. And they would try to block the public fora that he organised, the marches that he organised, but they never outsmarted him. He always managed to achieve what he needed to do, let me say that.
Indeed. Joseph, thank you so much for coming onto the program. It's been lovely to have you.
It's always an honour to talk about the late, great Uncle Ray and his enduring legacy. Thank you so much. And please give my love to Carolyn Jackson and the family.
I will indeed. Thanks a lot, Joseph.
Bye, Marissa. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And that was Joseph Pugliese, long-time activist and close friend of Uncle Ray, speaking about his life and legacy and paying special tribute to Ray Jackson.
Join the Melbourne May Day Committee for our annual May Day events in 2025. Thursday, the 1st of May, from 5 p.m. at the 8-hour memorial, diagonally opposite the Victorian Trades Hall. Wreath laying and reports on current trade union campaigns, and of course, commemorating winning the 8-hour day. And later on Thursday evening, our International Solidarity event with speakers, food and music at the ETU Ballroom inside Trades Hall. That's 6:30 p.m. Then, on Sunday, 4th of May, activities, stalls and barbecue on Lygon Street outside Trades Hall in Carlton from 11 a.m. Assembly at 1 p.m. and we march at 2 with the Ringwood Highland Pipe Band. The Sunday May Day March will feature speeches from activists, trade union leaders and advocates for peace and workers' rights. Come along on the evening of Thursday, the 1st of May and also during the day on Sunday, the 4th of May. The Melbourne May Day Committee is a 3CR supporter.
So you just heard an interview with Joseph Pugliese, and we will continue now our special programming for our dedication to Ray Jackson. Next up, we'll be speaking with his daughter, Carolyn Jackson. Hello, welcome to the program, Carolyn.
Hi, Marissa. How are you?
Good. Sorry if I'm a little bit late.
That's okay. It's all good.
Yeah, well, it's come to that time of year again now, hasn't it, Carolyn?
Yeah, it definitely has. Yeah, 10 years now. So, it's flown so quickly, like 10 years since his passing. And it feels like only yesterday that, he left us. But we still think of him a lot and we still love him and, we miss him dearly and, wish he was around. But, it's been a long time now.
A very long time. There have been a few grandchildren born since then?
Yes. Well, we had, but there's, there's 4 of mine and my sister, she's got Francine, she's got 2 other grandchildren too, 2 boys. And, but unfortunately we lost one last year. So that was quite sad. Yeah, so we lost one of the grandchildren last year in September.
My condolences.
Yeah, thank you. And, so there's all up so far there. He's got 8 4. Yeah, he's got 8 grandchildren. So, 9, but 9's not. The other one, Sienna's not with us.
Well, he's still got 9.
9.
9.
Still 9.
Yeah, I think so.
Still 9, definitely 9.
Definitely.
So, yeah, definitely.
So
I just, sorry.
Go on.
Oh, no, it's okay. Sorry.
I was just going to say that, you know, Ray really, when he walked down the streets of Redfern in Sydney, he was well known to wear a hat, wasn't he? Covered in political badges.
Yes, correct. And we still have that hat. My sister Francine's actually got that displayed in one of her cabinets with his a human rights medal that was awarded to him by the French government. So we've got all those. That's actually sitting right next to his cap, and it's still in the same condition as it was because we've had it protected in that cabinet. So it's been looked after, and we do explain to the grandkids when they do come what the hat's all about and all the different badges and what they do represent. So which they find intriguing, and they would like to take it off the hat, the badges, but we told them no, it's got to stay on the hat. Yeah. So, but yeah, we've still got that cap that he's well known for, and he's been known for that, his hat. And, yeah, so it's a nice, beautiful piece of something from him that we do treasure.
Absolutely. So at the beginning of the show, I did the show as close to the 23rd of April as possible. That's when he passed away. And I talked about, I gave the birth date and also when he passed away.
Yes.
What do you think are the most notable things that have happened for, the things that he's done in campaigns?
Since he's passed?
Before he passed, like during his life, sorry.
Oh, geez. What he succeeded through his work? Yeah, I mean, he's attended a lot of the, families and stood up for the families and represented the families who those have lost through death in custody. That also to, he was awarded his Doctor of Letters due to his work. Like I said, apart from his, apart from his Human Rights Medal, but also to just a lot of things in general. He just helped, especially with Gail Hickey, with the Hickey family as well. He's done a lot for her and for the family, but not just her, all the other families.
Yeah.
He treated them all totally equal. He would help them out, every single one of them equally. So to make sure that they were looked after and justice was served, on those who were tried to for accountable, but unfortunately those people are still left to be accountable for, as we know. We're still waiting on justice for those, unfortunately, but hopefully through his work and through people that had admired him and know of his work would, carry that through to help these families and future families as well.
And believe me, deaths in custody have not stopped, have they, since he has passed away? It's been. No. Joseph was just talking about, a few deaths in custody before you came on to the show. But I mean, look, I've been feeling off all day, to be honest. Every time I prepare a show for Ray, it's hard. It's hard for all of us, for many people.
That's right. I mean, with Dad, I think, to be honest, I know there's a lot of people out there that are working so hard, but I don't think you're going to ever find another Ray Jackson. I don't think. I mean, he worked so tirelessly, to the day he died. Till he wrote his last, till he'd done his, he emailed off his last email, at 11 o'clock at night, and then he went peacefully the next day. I mean, he had pneumonia. He signed himself out of hospital. We had pneumonia, and he even walked to the tent embassy at 4 o'clock in the morning to make sure they were okay, and he passed away that day, that morning.
Oh, my God.
So, to the day he died, he was there for those people that needed him. So to make sure they were okay and make sure no harm was getting to these people who were trying to, have their say and speech about how they've been treated. So, it just goes to show I don't think you're going to find anyone like him again.
Yeah, I remember he
dedicated.
Absolutely. And Carolyn, he even came to Melbourne one time for the people's hearing to hear all about how, our African brothers and sisters were being harassed by the police and Indigenous people.
Yes, and he hadn't been well for a long time, but you wouldn't think so. That's what I mean. We were totally shocked when he passed because he would have issues, health issues, but he would just push through and push through and push through, So, and you wouldn't think, we thought he'd be around forever because he was just so, I think because his passion just kept him going. You really need to do this fight. And that's what kept him going was the people, the families, for all these issues that were so important to him, whether it was invest in custody or Palestine or, anything, women's rights, human rights. He was always there. It was just a whole abundance of issues that he would throw himself into, that he would try and help people with. So, like I said, I don't think, you're not going to get anyone like him again. I mean, I even see it now. It's just, I know there's people fighting, but, especially with Yisha, like he formed that organisation and, it's not the same. But,
no.
Yeah.
Things are not the same.
No.
Because he used to say, black, white or brindle, you'd be united.
That's right, exactly. Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. But, we'll just hope that, let's just hope that there will be some slight of end to all of this, but I don't think there will be. And, but for these poor families that are still I feel sorry for Gail because that is still going and going on and on and on and still no one's been held accountable for.
No justice at all, Carolyn.
For TJ's. But this is how dedicated these people are. They still rally, they still march, they still fight. They don't give up the fight until there's justice. And I've got to give them a lot of credit and passion and, to seek justice for those who need it. So, so anyway, we can go on and on and on and on and on and on about, but, it's unfortunately, but we appreciate and that fact that what he did and everyone else, what he had done and what he has strived for and what he has accomplished, so, yeah.
I'll never forget him, Carolyn, and I'll always do a show every year.
I know, thank you. And you always do, Marissa, always do.
Yeah.
Always, you always, and thank you for keeping his memory alive and to the listeners as well. And, and also to his Joseph. Joseph is such a dear friend.
Yep. And
really, really admired and respected Dad so much. And, so they'll keep his memory alive. And you will too. That's what's good,
Wonderful. Well, Carolyn, thank you so much for coming onto the program and paying tribute to Ray. I'm glad we found each other's numbers.
Yeah,
and
exactly. So definitely keep in touch.
Absolutely. Probably. And hopefully we can catch up soon.
Oh, definitely, 100%.
Take care, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. And that was Carolyn Jackson, daughter of Ray, who spoke very eloquently about her father. And next up, I'm going to be doing an interview with Rob from Monday Breakfast. But before I do that, I just wanted to quickly talk about the connection to Ray and why I'm doing the interview. I mean, I would have interviewed Rob anyway, but I wanted to interview him on this show because Ray stood and stands in great solidarity with his trans brothers and sisters. And there was also a trans woman, Veronica Baxter, who died in custody, and Uncle Ray did a lot of work for her to expose some of that injustice and brutality, and also not allowing hanging points to be put in cells. He was trying to get that. That is actually part of the Royal Commission, as Veronica did hang herself in the cell. On Saturday, the 26th of April, around 450 activists attended a counter-protest in the name of trans liberation. I'm here to interview Rob about an eyewitness account of police brutality as a result of draconian police powers. And as I said, I invited him onto the show because Uncle was very committed to fighting police powers and always stood in solidarity with his brothers and sisters that were trans. So I'm just going to go into an announcement and we'll get Rob on the phone.
Mayday on 3CR.
Spend this May Day with 3CR as we celebrate workers everywhere. All day on Thursday the 1st of May and from 12 to 2 p.m. on Sunday the 4th of May.
Workers' stories, industrial struggles, labour rights and defending our unions.
We recognise all workers
and stand together in solidarity and struggle for fair wages and conditions.
While big business scabs your wages with pollies in their pockets and our unions under attack, working people are fighting back.
And together we will win. Tune in all day on Thursday the 1st of May and again for our live broadcast from outside Trades Hall on Sunday the 4th of May.
Head to 3cr.org.au/Mayday 2025 for our full program.
Mayday on 3CR.
And in case you've just tuned in, this is the Doin Time show. And I'd like to welcome Rob from Monday Breakfast onto the show. Hi, Rob.
Hi, Marissa. How are you?
Good. Apologies that I was a bit late.
So fine.
Yeah, we've been just doing a few tributes for Uncle Ray Jackson, who passed away around this time and was a great activist. So, Rob, let's talk about this counter-protest you attended. Just wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about it and also what happened.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show. It was a counter-protest to an action organised by this organisation called Women's Voices Australia. And they're protesting against the expansion of the anti-vilification laws, which will, try to crack down on hate speech against LGBTQIA+ people. There was a similar transphobic action in August of last year, which was organised by the Women's Action Group, where literal neo-Nazis attended and spoke. So the action on Saturday was very much like, another move on from that. You know, we see transphobes and TERFs across the globe really just like foaming at the mouth with, Trump in office in the United States, and of course the UK Supreme Court's decision to define women as someone who is born biologically female, whatever that is. So, they're obviously super excited to be able to take to the streets and spout more of their transphobic stuff. And we, as trans and queer people, went to the streets to counter that and let them know that they're not welcome.
And so basically, just to put it in context and to summarise, so last year, the Women's Action Group was an organisation dedicated to spouting all this transphobia and was attended by members of the National Socialist Network as well. Now, when on Saturday you were part of a group of trans and queer people, anti-fascists and other allies, disrupting Saturday's action by making noise and dancing to music in numbers vastly higher, isn't it, than that of the transphobic rally. So police set up a designated area, didn't they, during the day, and used these powers to force activists, many of whom are disabled, to remove their masks before searching them with a wand. What?
Yeah,
what
that's
an atrocity!
Right. Yeah, it's disgusting. And
did this happen to you,
really,
Rob?
Yeah, it happened to me. I got there a little bit early I think I saw somewhere for people to get there a little bit early, but I got there at like 11, and the action really started at like 11:30. But I got there wearing my mask, wearing my keffiyeh, wearing my sunnies, and immediately, like, I think 7 cops walked up to me saying, like, hey, like, you have to take off the mask. And I'm immediately looking at them and like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, not only do I, if there's literal, like, Nazis on the other side of the barricade, I'm going to be wearing a mask. Like, the action I went to last year to counter the Women's Action Group action, the transphobes were filming us. Anyway, so these 7 cops walk up to me and they tell me, like, you're in a designated area, you have to take off your mask or leave the area. Those are actually your only 2 options. And then they, searched me, and it was really disgusting. The 7 of them were standing around me, and then one of them was trying to, like, he was a little bit confused as to why I was getting frustrated and a little bit heated. I was like, there's 7 of you standing around me. I'm one trans person, and you're asking me to take off my mask. And I was even saying to them, like, I'm doing this for safety, like COVID safety as well. Like, I have a fair few immunocompromised people in my family and in my life. If they get sick, it can be really dangerous.
Like they care.
Like they care, exactly. And they just said, oh, I'm sorry to hear that, but please take off your mask.
In case people have just tuned in, this is the Doin Time show, and we are speaking with Rob Harrison, who is a proud non-binary, transgender and queer person who attended the rally and witnessed the police violence, and they are a co-host of the Monday Breakfast Show at 3CR Community Radio. So, Rob, I know that after all that there was a lot of capsicum spray and, there was a lot of brutalising of protesters. Did you see any of that?
Yeah, I saw a lot of it. So we were countering the TERFs rally basically until it ended. They were, ushered away when their little pathetic rally ended. And then we decided to march. So we walked all the way down Burke Street to the corner of Swanston Street. And numbers of the counter-protests were still quite large. There was still quite a lot of us. And, we're walking down Burke and Swanston Street, like, chanting, the cops killed a man in Footscray 2 weeks ago at Abdifatah Ahmed, as I'm sure you know, Marissa. And I obviously don't think they were enjoying that.
No.
So at one point, the cops were sort of cornered, standing outside the Vodafone on the corner of Burke and Swanston, and all the counter-protesters just standing there, continuing their chants, not really, doing anything. And then out of nowhere, like, maybe 20 to 30 cops come running down, like, screaming, like, move, and they're pushing protesters to the ground. And that particular corner of Burke and Swanston is where they have those, like, hard concrete seats, which have obviously, like, very hard edges. So they're, like, pushing protesters down into those seats. And, that's where a lot of the violence was occurring.
So this is despicable. It's despicable. I'm hoping that there was a lot of footage. Was Mel's there?
Yeah, Mel's were there the whole time, thankfully. And there was also the activist medics as well. I'm told that Hannah, one of the co-hosts of the Monday Breakfast Show, who was also at the rally, told me that the police broke one of the protesters' ankles. So not only have they been arrested, but they've also got a broken ankle.
This is all to do, and the Doin Time show has done a lot of extensive interviewing on this, to do with the police powers. The Victorian government has shame on the Victorian government because of what they've done. It's done in terms of having draconian police powers and hurting disabled people and our transgender brothers and sisters. It's making fascism come out even more. What a despicable thing.
Yeah, absolutely horrible.
Especially
with the mask, like when at the start of the rally, like I was searched, it was a little bit scary. But then, like when people who were literally on wheelchairs who were wearing masks were asked to take off their mask, and there's like 5 cops standing around them, which is disgusting.
People in wheelchairs?
Yeah. But it seems so silly. It seems so silly for them to ask. Obviously, it's super dangerous and disgusting. But like having the mask, like asking people to take off masks in a designated area where a trans and queer liberation protest is taking place, seems like a silly decision, because the overlap, the intersection between disabled people and the queer and trans community is huge.
Indeed. I mean, I woke up this morning and I turned on 3CR and I was listening to the breakfast show and I heard your account of what was going on. I was already upset because I'm actually grieving still for Uncle Ray Jackson, who, try to read about him if you can. He was a long-time Indigenous activist who was instrumental in building the movement to stop Aboriginal deaths in custody. And I wanted to invite you on the show. I would have invited you anyway regardless, because I just couldn't believe, well, I could believe it actually, this eyewitness account that you had. But I invited you onto the show as well today on this special broadcast because Uncle Ray, amongst many, many other campaigns, stood in solidarity with his trans brothers and sisters and assisted a woman, a trans woman, Veronica Baxter, and they were in prison and hung themselves. And he assisted with all the autopsy and everything. I mean, helping to bring that to light.
Wow, that's incredible work.
It is incredible work.
Yeah, and that's why it's super important that especially us, like white, trans, and queer people, fight for decolonization. You know, it's like we have to. I talk about this a lot with my queer and trans friends. Like, we have to include decolonization when we're fighting for trans and queer liberation. Otherwise, trans and queer liberation just like is worth nothing.
That's why I invited you, because I wanted to connect it all up. Because the people united shall never be defeated.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're working to put that solidarity back. The same people, literally the same people punishing queer and trans people for being queer and trans are the same people locking up and killing Indigenous people on this continent.
Exactly. And so what about the people, the fascists on the other side of the barricade? What was happening to them?
Well, they had their little, there was definitely less than 50 at that rally, and they just came and did their thing and left, really. It was sort of hard to see because there's the counter-protest, there's a barricade, there's a line of police, there's like 20 meters, another police line, another barricade, and then the TERF rally. So they're probably about like 30 meters away, at least. Last year was a little bit, back in August, the other action that I mentioned, literal like neo-Nazis showed up. And that was the rally that made the headlines when, the people from the National Socialist Network showed up and did their salute.
Yeah.
That salute is like illegal now, but I don't know. I don't know exactly. I don't know if that would have stopped them, but I guess they weren't there doing their salutes this time.
But it's still bad.
Also absolutely still bad. And there was also, there was a separate rally organised by other far-right activists at Flagstaff Gardens who were marching as well. So, yeah, it was super important to let them know they're not welcome.
So the action was countering the reactionary Women Will Speak rally, which is a rally organised by TERFs and white nationalists, just to put it in context for listeners. So, Rob, you had 8 cops surrounding you and they made you take off your mask. I mean, that is just disgusting, the way police are weaponising masks when there's, COVID-19 is still rearing its ugly head. You've got flu, you've got measles, and you've got disabled people that are immune compromised. It is an absolute atrocity and a disgrace. It is a disgrace.
Yeah. It's so dangerous as well. Like, I asked all of these 7 police standing around me to take a step back, and they wouldn't.
Good on you.
And I was like, if I'm gonna take my mask off, can you, like, as I said before, I've got immunocompromised people in my life. Like, I can't, get sick. And they wouldn't.
Disgusting.
And they also, they searched my bag as well, but I opened, my bag up and showed them, the books that I was carrying or something, and they were, right in my face as well. So it's really dangerous, and it's just another form of state violence.
It is a form of state violence, and it's also, I think, because there's also been increased anger because of the Footscray man, Somali man, that was shot. Was he Somali? Shot a couple of weeks ago. And that's another story, and that's definitely something that I'm going to be doing on the show as well as a follow-up to today. But I wanted to admire you for your courage in what you did, Rob. And I think it's really important to bear witness and for as many people as possible to speak about those experiences and not to be afraid of the cops, because we have to form a cop watch. If we remain anonymous and we are divided, an injury to one is an injury to all. So anyone who's listening, come to the studios of 3CR, go into 3CR shows and come and talk about your experiences of police brutality so that we can get rid of these police powers.
Yeah, absolutely. And people need to know how draconian these laws are. I mean, even my partner was shocked about that these designated area search notices exist. And your 2 options are remove your mask or leave, be searched or leave.
Well, it'd be interesting to see what would happen if we took it to court to say that they that there's COVID and there's a health risk. That would be really interesting. Were you arrested?
No, I wasn't arrested. But I think if I resisted, I could have been, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you did your best.
Yeah, that's when I'm literally looking at the flyer that they gave to me because, so I was talking to Mals after I was searched, and they told me that you can ask for the police officer's name, badge number, and which station they're from, and you also can ask for information about where the designated area search notice is and what it gives them the right to do.
Okay.
Yeah, but if I had have obstructed or hindered their power to stop and search me, then I would have been arrested.
Yeah, okay. Okay, well, we're going to be running out of time soon. Are there any concluding comments you wanted to make, Rob, before we finish?
No, just that we need to keep returning to solidarity, and trans liberation is land back, and we need to keep pushing for decolonisation. That is our first priority on stolen land.
I forgot to ask you for some persecuted music. I'll have to do it like next time. Oh my God.
Yeah, that would have been good.
We need suicidal tendency.
Yeah.
Rob, thanks so much. Thanks so much for coming onto the show. It's been lovely having you. And
thanks for having me.
In case people have just tuned in, this is a tribute show for Uncle Ray Jackson, who's done amazing work as well. Thanks a lot, Rob.
Thanks, Marissa.
Thanks a lot. Bye. And that was Rob Harrison. You heard an interview with Rob, who is a proud non-binary, transgender and queer person who attended the rally and witnessed the police violence. And they are a co-host of the Monday Breakfast Show at 3CR Community Radio. It's approximately 4:55, and I wanted to thank all our tributes for coming onto the show. I wanted to thank the lovely Joseph Pugliese and also lovely Carolyn Jackson for coming onto the show and paying tribute to Ray, and also thanking Rob as well for bearing witness to the despicable, and I say despicable, police harassment and brutality that happened at the counter-protest on the 26th of April in the name of trans liberation. And I will add, in the name of decolonisation as well. We have 1 minute left before the show ends. Stay tuned every Monday, 4 to 5, for the Doin Time show. And stay safe and fight against the cops. Bye.
You've been listening to a 3CR podcast produced in the studios of independent community radio station 3CR in Melbourne, Australia. For more information, go to allthews.3cr.org.au.